Get ready for hard times. It's something that I've heard said before. It sounds pretty ominous. It's a little bit like prepare for the worst. It's not really meant to be that the worst is coming or hard times are here. It's more about planning, something that you can do, that you can control, so that if those hard times do come, well, you've already got it figured out. If you watch precious metals content on YouTube, there is a really good chance that you're being told that bad things are coming. It's the same as it ever was. It's just a little bit louder lately. Banks are about to collapse. Dollar's worthless. CBDCs are here. China or Russia or some other country is doing something right now that you need to be worried about. Whatever. Some of it, it's maybe worth tuning into, but people have figured out that saying scary things gets them attention. Doesn't even have to be accurate. But the problem that I have with it is that I just don't see many rational suggestions for what to do about any of it. And that always makes me less interested in the content. I would like to see more ideas on things that people have seen, people have done, that have worked to give them a leg up. So let's get into some of that. Now I'm going to reference some things that I've done. I'm not going to go too deep because I've already mentioned a lot of it. This one is more about how you might go about getting started on your own plan, and then I'm going to come back to what I might do if I was starting out today with everything currently going on. So the quick view of my plan, at least initially, was to buy a 1/4 ounce of gold a month for 8 years. I had other things happening at the same time, but that was my scheduled plan. It was just trying to put aside something extra in case I ever needed to cover an emergency. And after a year of buying a 1/4 ounce of gold each month, well, I had 3 ounces that could cover, or at least help cover, most emergency needs that I had at the time. I've said this before, I think 3 ounces of gold is a great initial goal, maybe even a final goal. It all depends on where you're at in life. And at the end of 8 years, I had 24 ounces of gold. That gave me a way to subsidize a bad month with an ounce of gold for 2 years before I was in trouble. And I'm going to stop there. My plans, my expenses have changed over time. I have videos where I've expanded on those plans, explained what I'm up to. I've increased those goals for what I want to hold. But the point in this video isn't what my plan is or was. It's about you having your own plan. And I think there are a few concepts here that apply to this. I'm going to look at 4, and I'm going to tell you how they apply to gold for me. The first concept is pretty easy. It's just having a plan so you know which direction to head. Navy SEAL training has so many great points of advice here. My favorite is don't run to your death. But if that seems a little bit morbid, the idea of slow being smooth and smooth being fast, well, that works too. The idea is to take a minute, come up with a strategy before you jump in. In the case of gold purchases, that means figuring out your budget, means figuring out what you can stick to without being unnecessarily painful, figuring out what to buy so you don't realize that you've made a mistake early. You've just been repeating it over and over. And it means knowing what you're working towards so you can pull motivation from that progress along the way. In my case, that short-term plan was just to save 3 ounces of gold and to buy 1/4 ounce a month. My longer-term plan was to keep at it and then bring the goal up so that I could save 24. The second concept is just sticking to it. We can jump from Navy SEALs to Stoics here. Stoic philosophy is not about wealth accumulation. It's about learning to live well with what you have in your power to control, which isn't much. It's about self-control, rational decision-making, and we're talking about discipline here, not getting caught up in what others hype without proper reason or evidence, avoiding impulse buys because somebody's trying to fire you up, or impulse buys simply to make yourself feel better, just rational, disciplined actions. This one's pretty straightforward. The only thing I'll say here is that discipline doesn't mean beating yourself up. Sometime maybe you'll have to miss a month. Things come up. You just get back to it as soon as you can. This means staying on track, constantly working to completion, and focusing on progress. Keeping with that Stoic philosophy for a minute, there are stacks of ideas written 2,000 years ago that are still more relevant today than ever. Ideas about keeping calm, avoiding constant distraction, not comparing yourself or your wealth to others, living below your means. All these are great. If you want to dive into that further, I think Seneca is a great place to start. He points out that people waste a large part of their lives in the pursuit of wealth that they'll never have time to enjoy. He talks about visualizing worst case scenario and then being okay with it. It's all really interesting stuff. Now, Stoics, they get a bad rap for being a little bit morbid. They meditated on death. You'll hear memento mori, which is basically, look, man, you're going to die at some point. You need to focus on what's important. The real point really has nothing to do with death. It's that you have all the tools that you need to be happy. So get on with it. And the next concept here as it applies to gold is to just get started, get after it. Stoics had a lot of great insight on this too. Only focus on what you can control. You can't do anything about a possible bank collapse, but you can work on getting rid of debt. You can work on living below your means. You can work on savings. You can buy those quarter ounces of gold, 1 ounce of gold, whatever your plan is, you can do that. And I've found that buying gold has been just about the least painful way to work on savings. It's actually exceptionally interesting. It's kind of fun. And the reason that's the third concept and not the first is that you really do need to get your plan together before jumping in. That helps you save without getting into trouble in other areas. It's not going to help fund savings if you have to use debt to do it, for instance. You go ham on gold and silver because YouTube is screaming about, I don't know, CBDC overlords coming to steal your monies. Well, that isn't going to help put you in a better place 10 years from now. I started with that quarter ounce a month, and I did that until the idea locked in. I've increased that over time, but if I ran Leroy Jenkins style into 2010, well, that wouldn't have ended well. That was really when I got started, so I would have been going up that ramp into 2011, and that would have wrecked me. I'm not sure I'd be doing it today still. At some point in your life, somebody's probably told you to work ahead. Maybe you just started doing it on your own, but that way, if something comes up, whether it's good or bad, you don't have to have the negative impact that comes with the surprise. You just roll with it. You also sleep well knowing that you're doing something. It's the opposite of feeling like you're behind. And anxiety, that is a bad thing. And that brings me to the fourth and final concept, which is focusing on what you can control. And to a certain extent, being okay with the things that you can. I've already touched on this one. You can stock up on gold as a backup, but you cannot prevent today's popular horror story. So focus your time, focus your attention, focus your energy on putting yourself in a better place, and then tune out the people who are trying to get you to focus on the wrong things. Situational awareness is a good thing. Worrying about unlikely possibilities that we hear over and over and over is not. Okay, so since we're here to talk about gold, I'm going to bring it back to specifics. If I was starting out today and I knew what I know through actual evidence of likely issues on a macroeconomic scale, and then I knew about gold being on a recent price run, well, I would probably consider front-end loading some of my buying, just a little bit, and then I would get into a longer-term scheduled buying group. Let's just say that I wanted 3 ounces of gold and then I wanted to keep doing it. I wanted to continue on. I would probably buy an ounce of gold and then I would move into purchasing a quarter ounce a month. So I would buy an eagle or a buffalo initially and then I would move into quarter ounce eagles. That's me. Now the detail of what I'm buying is based on my ability to sell. So eagles and buffaloes, they are no brainers, but there are lots of other options. I can think of 5, maybe 6 Canadian maple leafs, Krugerrands, possibly Philharmonics, Britannias, or Kangaroos. They would all be just fine. And we're really getting into pretty specific details here. I think I need different videos to fully explain what I'm getting at here, but it's possible that I might want a 24 karat option for my monthly buy. Now, I'm not sure. Eagles are 22 karat. They're just fine. They're the most popular bullion gold coin in the world. So that means that they're exceptionally popular here in the United States. I also have a lot of eagles already, so that's where my momentum is. I don't want variety. I want easy. But there are days I think I could talk myself into wanting 24 karat instead of the 22 karat, and I could convince myself to buy quarter ounce Britannias. And if that seems weird because I listed Britannias toward the end of my list, well, they are a 22 millimeter diameter coin. And the size of the quarter ounce coins, it becomes a big deal. I love Canadian maple leafs, for instance, but the smaller radius on them, they're 20 millimeter coins, makes them seem a little bit underwhelming at the quarter ounce size. Now these are details that might seem minor. They're definitely things that you need to decide on, but having the fewest moving parts in your plan makes it the easiest to implement. It makes it the easiest to stick to. And in the event that you need to actually sell those coins in some kind of emergency, well, the benefit of ease and speed becomes a much bigger deal. Now, I show plenty of variety on this channel. I have some fun stuff that I really like, but there's no question where I would start. I'd start with the stuff that I know I could liquidate without any headaches at all. The reason that I've circled back on basic planning here is that there's just so much going on right now. There's so many distractions. There's so much bad information. And I understand how that leads to stress purchases. It leads to overall anxiety. And sometimes I just wonder what YouTube does to people, what it does to their mental health. That can't be good. And it's not YouTube, it's the news cycle in general. I just thought that it was a good time to slow it down and focus again on the fundamentals, and then we can get back into some wild stuff in the next one. So let's call it good there. Let us know what your plan is. Now, I know there are a lot of people that are holding right now, maybe setting the spring for future price correction. If you do have a plan, though, that you're already working on, you want to give some specifics, let us know. Either way, though, it's always good to see what you're up to, so hit us up in the comments. And then while you're there, be sure to hit that like button. If you found any of this interesting, be sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on if you'd like to see more on the topic. And if you're still here, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.